Welcome to our listeners tuning in today. My name is Bosco Anthony, and I'm pleased to be hosting a digital panel today where we discuss the future state of the residential supply chain for builders. A conversation between two continents. I'm joined today by two lovely gentlemen, Ryan and Russ. Ryan Lipchuk is the Vice President of Business Development for CDUSA, a builder member network that has a combined purchasing volume and buying power of a large national builder, allowing its members to gain purchase advantage and deliver increased purchasing volume. Ryan has had some incredible accolades and success, winning a few prestigious sales awards, including an Industry Master Builder Award, which I will quiz him about shortly. Russ Stevens is the co-founder for the Association of Professional Builders, helping builders double the size of their businesses through profitable growth. The Association of Professional Builders provides some cutting-edge systems, world-class support, and sales and marketing training to the construction industry. Russ is also an international best-selling author, having written the book Professional Builder Secrets, which can be found on Amazon. And Russ, I will be quizzing you about the book as well. So welcome, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Awesome. Thanks, Bosco.
Yeah, fantastic, Bosco. Thanks so much. Really looking forward to this chat with Ryan today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And let's just get in deep, right away. So I'm going to start off with Russ here. What compelled you to get into this industry and start a career in this particular industry as well?
Yeah, I think the draw really was, as the name suggests, really, custom home building is not a commodity. Therefore, it shouldn't be price sensitive. And previously, I'd spent 20, 30 years in a very price sensitive industry. I was in distribution where we were a middleman and we were effectively a commodity. Everything was about price. So it was quite exciting to go into an industry that was not only growing, but looking from the outside, at least, wasn't price sensitive, or it certainly shouldn't have been. Obviously, as we opened up the kimono there, we saw that the perception was slightly different, and that in itself opened an opportunity.
Ryan, what compelled you to get into your industry as well?
Boy, I'll tell you what, thanks for doing this, you guys. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to sit down with both of you as always. The chats we've had leading up to this have been fantastic, so I'm pumped. Right out of college, it's been 25 years. It's the only thing I've ever done. I got into home building with a big national builder right out of college and ended up taking an opportunity that I didn't know how long would last, turning it into a lifelong career. And I love it. I love the aspects of building something, constructing something, planning, the organization that has to go into putting 40,000 pieces and parts together and doing it outside in the environment with whatever nature throws at you is pretty awesome to me. There's not too many more intriguing things than that. So I still love walking job sites. I love all parts of our industry and helping small independent custom builders be better at what they do is something that motivates me, and I hope I do it another 25 years.
Well, let's get into the current state of the residential construction industry. It's an unprecedented time. And in your respective locations, Ryan, you're in the US, Russ, you're in Australia, the construction industry has changed and it's evolving. And during this time of uncertainty, I'm just curious what your thoughts and perceptions are on the current state. And we'll start off with Ryan. What are your thoughts about this particular space?
Well, residential home building is what we specialize in. We do have some commercial builders, some multifamily, some remodeling, but pretty much single family residential home building. And I mean, I don't know that there's ever been a better time to be in this industry than right now. We're blessed, all of us, to be a part of a great industry at a time when it's busting from the seams. So I guess to answer your question, Bosco, it's a fantastic time to be here, and we're excited about where the industry is heading. Now, having said that, there are some unbelievable challenges out there right now that I don't think anybody has ever seen. The materials be as volatile in pricing, as hard to get as the supply and the demand. We'll get into all that being as out of whack as it is. The land, there's not much land out there now. What used to be a bad lot is now considered a pretty good lot because the land is just not as much. And then labor. We all know the labor shortage out there. People are aging out of the labor force and nobody's coming back into it. So I think that's twofold to answer your question. One, it's a great time to be in a great industry. but it's a tough time, and we're blessed with those challenges as well.
Russ, what are you seeing in Australia? Do you see the same sort of observations that Ryan has made?
Yeah, well, our membership spans Australia, New Zealand, and North America. So it's interesting being able to look across a couple of continents there and see what is affecting builders in both those continents. And the one thing that we've seen across all areas is they are time poor like never before. I mean, builders have always been busy, but they are off the chart busy. Just like Ryan says, it's a fantastic time to be in this industry. It's probably also one of the most challenging times because of what has actually happened. Builders are taking on 3 and 4 times the amount of work than they've previously taken on. It's a fantastic opportunity, but it's only a great opportunity if that opportunity is handled right. So, we're certainly seeing different challenges, but the one thing that seems to unite builders at the moment is they are time poor like never before.
Now, both of you are around builders every day, and I'm sure you tend to see some of these trends that are happening, even in this sort of post-COVID era. What are some of the current trends that you're seeing in the industry? And this question would, start off with Ryan. Maybe this is on innovation, or maybe it's a habit, or it's a business operation trend. But I'm just curious what you see as a trend in this building space right now.
Bosco, there's a lot of different trends going on right now. Things that are coming back as far as design and different ways to build homes. There's always so many different things, but the things that jumps out to me probably the most is builders using technology to their advantage more than ever before. And all the different reasons that Russ just talked about, builders being so time poor is a good way to say it. Becoming more efficient in the way that they run their operation is probably the biggest change over the last 10 years that I've witnessed, from construction management software to the different ways to run your accounting, to the scheduling process, to the training of your people. Everything is geared towards having to run your company more efficiently. Because as I always say, it goes back to the Depression. I mean, back in 08, 9, 10, people had a lot more builders per revenue than they do now. Now people are running a lot more revenue through their business with a lot less people. So that means people are having to wear more hats. People are having to manage more homes. Everything's flowing through the business a lot faster than it ever has been. You're having to look out over the headlights a lot more than you ever used to. An example being like appliances now. You need to order appliances in a lot of cases, and the same being true with windows and other things. Before you even dig the hole, you better order those things or else you're not going to get them in time. So I think it all lends itself to the biggest change that I've seen is you have to be organized. You can't afford to be a builder that's flying by the seat of your pants, and all the new technology out there. How you grasp that, how you use it to your advantage is the biggest thing that I see.
And Ryan, efficiency is Russ's language. I think that's his love language from everything I know about Russ. And so, Russ, what is your take on some of the current trends in the industry? And you see this, with everything you interact with. What are your thought processes around this as well?
Yeah, I'm going to be pretty blunt on this. Builders are doing a lot more work for less profit right now. And that is both a short-term trend, which has been a bit more in your face in the last 12 months. They are having to reschedule with the supply chain challenges. So their jobs that would normally run for 7 months are blowing out to 12 months and 14 months now. So they are having to do a lot more work, but the margins are being eroded. So they're doing it for less profit. But that's not just a short-term trend. That's also an underlying long-term trend. Just like Ryan said, builders are becoming more organized, more systemized. And they have to be, because again, over the long-term trend is they are doing a lot more work and taking on more work now.
So let's take a step back and let's look at this from a holistic perspective. We'll start with Ryan. Tell us a little bit about CDUSA, about the brand reach, and a little bit about what you do in the company and how you impact your stakeholders.
From a holistic view, we started in 2004 with the mission in the Washington, D.C. area, getting builders together to compete with the bigger builders. And we all have bigger builder backgrounds. They get better pricing, they get better service, they get better everything because they have a bigger footprint, they have more systems, more process, more people, everything. So we decided to, hey, they do this in all the other, restaurant industry, hospitals, they have purchasing groups, group buying organizations in, office supplies and almost every industry that you could think of, from lumber to drywall. Why not do it with builders? And we did it. And now 17 years later, we're in 34 markets. We have $5 billion in annual revenue. We have 13,000 homes a year that we build, between 575 builders around the United States. And we get our builders better deals than they could ever get on their own by being better at what we do. We become more efficient. We pool our guys together, and we get a great group of builders working with a great bunch of suppliers, roll that up to a great bunch of manufacturers, get everybody working in tune together for the betterment of the entire supply chain from top to bottom. And if everybody's doing better at what they do within our supply chain, then everybody's going to be able to be more profitable. Everybody's going to be able to be better buyers, better sellers, better builders, better producers. Everybody all the way up and down the chain gets better at what they do, more profitable, which ties back into what Russ said, how important profitability is right now. So that's what CDUSA does. We're a 17-year-old company, and we try to help all of those shareholders all the way up and down the supply chain get better, because if it's good for one and it's not good for the rest, it's going to be pretty short-lived. But if you can make it good for everybody, then the whole building community gets better. And that's what we try to do every day.
This is the perfect wine pairing with Russ. So Russ, tell us a little bit about the Association of Professional Builders and what you do, and the reach that it has globally as well.
Yeah, well, the mission for the Association of Professional Builders is to improve the residential construction industry for both builders and consumers. And this is driven by a very strong belief that builders deserve to be earning a lot more money than they're currently earning from building luxury homes. However, we also believe that consumers deserve a far better service than they're currently receiving. And those two things, they go hand in hand, because you can't deliver a world-class customer service on tiny margins and without systems. So our mission, our goal is to systemize 50,000 building companies in the industry. And by providing systems to builders to become better organized, more profitable, they in turn will deliver a far better client experience to consumers.
All right. And so we're going to start off with Ryan. Ryan, we talked a little bit about group purchasing when I first started talking to you. Tell me a little bit about the concept of group purchasing and how does it benefit the builders that you work with?
Like I started saying a minute ago, group purchasing is not a new thing, Bosco. Everybody's been doing it, and it resonates with everybody. It just makes sense on a very simple level. Whatever you're buying, if you could buy more of that, that's good, because people want to sell you more of something. That's what it's all about. So if we can figure out how to bring that aspect to a very challenging industry, getting builders to buy the same thing, custom independent builders, buy the same stuff from the same people at the same time, all those reasons are challenges why the building industry is slow to adapt in many ways, and it's slow to adapt to purchasing groups. But we figured out over the last 17 years kind of how to bring that group purchasing concept to individual builders. And there's no different now between us and a national builder, other than a national builder has one boss at the top, where we have 570 different folks that are involved in purchasing. So getting everybody paddling in the same direction is the biggest key to a group purchasing organization. And when you do it and you do it right, it's exactly what Russ said. It brings those processes, it brings those systems, it allows builders to continue to have a world-class customer service experience for their homeowners, which is what they're built on, what these custom builders do, but do it in such a way that now you can procure materials at a much more efficient manner and get at a better price, and end up being able to do everything you've always done, but do it at a much better price. So group purchasing is what it's all about, and lassoing everybody is the hard part.
All right. And Russ, you analyze markets internationally every day, and we'll get into some of the reports that you produce globally, but has Australia adopted this model, and is it any different to the US model? What are you seeing right now in Australia?
Yes, there are buying groups in Australia, but not as large as CDUSA, and that's an important component of a buying group, is to have that buying power. Yeah, I've experienced this firsthand in my previous career in distribution, where we were part of a national buying group, and being a commodity, it is such an important component of your business model, is to be able to buy at the level the big guys are buying. We do have one buying group in Australia that is expanding beyond the state. They typically tend to be state-based in Australia. That's the Trade Alliance Group, and it's quite exciting to see how they've expanded from Queensland into Victoria, and are now looking to expand into New South Wales as well. So that's, I think that is a key strength of the buying group, is its size, in order to negotiate those better deals, which the builders need. They need that clout behind them. It's very difficult to negotiate as an individual business.
So to your point, Russ, and I'll jump in, Bosco, we ended up, from 2004 until 2011, we weren't big enough to successfully navigate the manufacturer world and do those type of things. So you're exactly right. But once you achieve a level of scale that allows you to do that, puts you in that top tier, now you have enough clout to swing a big stick and go negotiate with all the big guys, and then end up getting deals just like the top 10 builders do. So we lived it, and you're exactly right.
And maybe there's room for a CB Australia someday too.
I'll tell you what, that would be awesome. We're ready. I think our owners, Builder Trend, now they're very excited about branching out. They're a global company, and we would like to be one day as well. So I'll come see you, Russ.
All right. Well, gents, I remember a time last year when I walked up to a supermarket in a country of plenty, and there was really nothing on the shelf. So I'm going to ask the question, and this question really designed today's conversation. So in a world of uncertainty and change, what is the current state of play for supply chains in the US and in Australia? We'll start off with the US. Ryan, tell us what your experience has been in the last 12 months.
We have a division of our company that really is built towards national purchasing and local purchasing and supply chain. And we have some very experienced folks that have 30 plus years each in the business of supply chain. And there's a lot to it, from the manufacturers to the distribution to the one-steppers, the two-steppers, all the way down to the consumer, and how builders procure materials. And it's really fascinating how you get those 40,000 pieces and parts of a house out to the job site. There's a lot that goes into it. I think what COVID did was, in my opinion, in a nutshell, it pretty rapidly threw off the supply and demand for a lot of different reasons, and we've never been able to catch up. I think COVID really encouraged people to build homes, to remodel their homes, to do all kinds of stuff in the building world. And if they're going to spend that much time in their house, they want it to be just the way they want it. Demand spiked at the same time as supply was shutting down, and they couldn't find enough workers in the factories. They were shutting down the third shifts. People were seeing that they could make as much money at home with the different government stipends than they could at going into work. Plus the fear of COVID, the older workers didn't want to go into work. So all of a sudden, at the time when you have a peak demand, you have a shrinking supply. And we have never been able to catch up from that. And the only way that we are going to catch up, but we're slowly getting back there. But supply is picking back up, and demand is starting to curtail a little bit, but it's never caught back up. And that's what's led to the astronomical prices that we've seen over the last 8 months in the material world, including at the top of the list of lumber.
And Ryan, just to clarify, some of the supply chain is coming up north from Canada as well. So the border closures did sort of dampen some of that flow of supply as well. Is that correct?
For sure. Canadian lumber mills are still a big part of the United States lumber supply. When those shut down, the tariffs, the closures, everybody wanting to keep what they had to themselves, because all of a sudden now supply shrinks. So it's harder to get something out of another country than it used to be, because they want to corral it. It's no longer an export that they have plenty of. It's something that they need to keep as an asset to their country. So very difficult to get that material. And There was different fires. There was some natural disasters that happened. We have a guy named Phil Randolph on our team who's the VP of purchasing. That's a phenomenal 35-year industry veteran. And he's done a phenomenal job with our builders over the last 10 months of guiding our team and our builders through this crisis. I mean, it's been nothing short of a crisis. I mean, as we get into it, there's an unbelievable amount of money that people are paying for these materials that there's just not that much money in a house to start paying triple the amount for lumber. It's not there.
And Russ, let's start off with Australia, but again, your reach is incredible. You've got an international analysis of New Zealand, Australia, Canada, the US through all your builder networks as well. But let's start with, home here. What is your take on the current state of play for the supply chains in Australia?
Yeah, in Australia, we're seeing particular challenges with timber. It's interesting. We didn't see the price hikes in Australia that we saw with lumber in the US, where it went up very, very quickly, astronomical amounts. But we are seeing the shortages. I don't know. Maybe this is an Australian thing, not price gouging as much. But we're now starting to see reports from our members of potential steel shortages. Australia running out of coil for steel is what we're hearing, and rationing of supplies. So that is going to lead to further challenges. We're seeing a lot of challenges in New Zealand as well with the lockdowns. Obviously, we have lockdowns in Australia at the moment, in New South Wales and Victoria, but especially in New Zealand, where the lockdowns have been more severe, and manufacturers haven't been producing. So that's even affecting builders not on the South Island, not directly affected by lockdowns themselves. So that has been particularly challenging. The difference we see with our members in the US is the fact that they are seeing more challenges across the board. A lot wider range of supplies are in short supply than in Australia.
And what are you hearing on the ground? What are builders trying to do to handle this current challenge? Russ, we'll start off with you. What are some of the things that you're recommending or hearing from them as far as, how they're trying to overcome this particular obstacle? Is there any sort of planning that you can do in this particular environment?
Well, the number one thing that we're recommending is communication. It really is a case of over communicating with your suppliers, your subcontractors, and your clients to make sure that you are ordering within the new timeframes, which have blown out considerably. But the other thing that we've noticed builders have been reporting they're doing in order to get suppliers pay up front. Now, with new homes, that's a little bit easier, being that new home building is cash flow positive. And builders do have a certain amount of cash flow that they can allocate to paying up front. But that won't be sustainable over the long term. So that could lead to cash flow issues as these cash reserves dwindle for builders. So that is a bit of a concern, especially with the timeframes being so long. Seeing builders pay so far in advance for materials, could put pressure on their business model in the coming months.
All right. And Ryan, what are your thoughts about this particular entity? Do you feel like bulk buying is the solution, or buying in advance if you have the cash flow? Like what are you seeing from the builder side of things?
Both. Do everything you can. Lasso as much purchasing power as you're able to. Builders in your area, competitors. If you're not in the CDUSA market, go find more volume. And then, like Russ said, be better at what you do. Be the best builder. Be the builder of choice. Have jobs ready for your vendors. Everything just makes sense when there's not enough labor out there. Be the best. The labor is going to want to work for you. When materials at an all-time shortage and expensive everything, you better be organized. You better order early. You better order too much of what you need. You better look at options to store what you buy. Figure it all out, because the more volume you have and the smarter you are as a builder, the better position of strength you're going to put your company in to procure the best materials, to be the best, and to give that world-class customer service that Russ spoke about earlier. So both, any, all, everything, do it all.
Well, let's switch our focus now into the builder side of things, and I think this is going to be an interesting one as well because you're both dealing with builders every day. So let's start off with some of the blind spots experienced by builders. And Russ, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this because I'm sure there's a few disruptive blind spots. But what is your thought process when it comes to some of the blind spots experienced by the builders?
Yeah, the number one blind spot at the moment is margin erosion. It's almost one of those topics that when builders get so busy, they almost don't want to know about. They don't want to know the truth. But the fact is, margins are being eroded weekly at the moment. Now, normally we would recommend all of our members measuring their gross profit on every single job every month and plotting that in a spreadsheet so they can monitor the margin. But right now, we're recommending that they do this weekly because this is what is catching out a lot of builders. They're getting to the end of the job and then realizing that they've either made no money or they've made a considerable loss. And by being aware of that margin erosion as the job is progressing, you're much more likely to be in a position to protect further erosion and make sure that you're charging for the bits that you can charge in order to protect that margin. So yeah, margin erosion is the number one blind spot at the moment.
And Ryan, what's your thought process in the US? What do you think the builders in the US are experiencing as far as their blind spots? Is it the same?
Same exact thing. Same exact thing by far and away what Russ said. I echo it. Margin erosion is hard to see until it's too late. Sometimes it's very difficult. I love what Russ said about him advising his builder customers to measure margin weekly, measure it phase by phase by phase, and don't just look at it at the end of a job because then it's too late. This is not a hard time. I just got done giving a talk. It's not a hard time to be a builder. It's not a hard time to answer the phone and take jobs and have a lot of things on your schedule. But it's a hard time to be a profitable builder. It's a hard time to be a builder with good customer service ratings. It's a hard time to be a builder who gets jobs done on time. Those are all very, very difficult right now, harder than they've ever been. So phones are ringing, jobs are out there, but we got to figure out how to do it. A lot of builders I talk with that built 20 homes last year, they built 32 homes this year, but they didn't make any more money doing it. And we're not out here for practice. We're taking time away from our families and everything else we're doing to earn a living. So if you're going to build more homes, you better make some more money.
And when we talk about profitability, I think this is something that is the purpose that Russ was echoing. So Russ, how is the Association of Professional Builders empowering builders today? What are some of the techniques and innovations that you've brought into the market space to really help builders become more profitable?
Yeah, I think number one is understanding their business empowers them. I heard a very smart comment years ago from an entrepreneur. Well, he's actually an accountant, but he was also an entrepreneur who bought my distribution company in the UK when we moved to Australia. And as part of the process, the due diligence, he said to me quite clearly, better information leads to better decisions. And I thought that was a great saying, and it's stuck with me ever since. And this is really where we start with every builder that we work with. Better information before we can advise and potentially end up scaling up an unprofitable business. We have to understand exactly where they are. So we always start with the numbers, understanding exactly where they are with their business, where they want to be, helping the builders to understand the ratios they need to achieve to get there. Otherwise you will end up losing money when you grow. And then measuring those KPIs weekly, monthly, and quarterly to make sure that we're on track, but also to enable our executive coaches who are working with these builders to use something we call DDD, which is data-driven decision-making. And rather than simply talking to builders and getting their viewpoint on what's going on in their business, our coaches look at the data and make decisions based on the data. And that helps them to better guide the builders on what they need to be focusing on in their business. But this whole process of understanding their numbers, that leads to empowerment and a shift in mindset.
And it's really compelling because I've talked to some of these builders that you've worked with, Russ, and the transformations are incredible. I've had the opportunity and privilege to talk to builders, in the U.S. and New Zealand, in Australia, and the awareness, the financial awareness that the Association of Professional Builders brings to the table is absolutely impeccable. I've learned a lot about the calculators that that we've talked about in the systems in the last few weeks. Ryan, we'll move to you, and let's talk about what CDUSA is doing or has on the horizon to make life easier for builders. I know you're having an event coming up for some of your top tier clients as well, and it's been a while since we've gone back into the actual in-person event. So tell us a little bit about some of the initiatives that are happening at CDUSA that you're really excited about.
All right. We have our Power 30 conference coming up, which is in Beaver Creek outside of Vail, Colorado. Every year we bring our best customers from around the country. We partner with our manufacturers, and we put on a great several-day conference. So we're excited for that. Our new parent company, Builder Trend, is a great company out of Omaha, Nebraska, that's got 25,000 plus customers across the United States. And they do construction management software. Every day we're talking with them about more horsepower behind CDUSA and partnering with them. So there's a ton of new initiatives coming. There's a lot of great things coming in terms of our partnership with them and what we're going to be able to do for our builder network and builders out there that are within the Builder Trend family now that aren't in the CDUSA network. One thing I want to say is just to piggyback on what Russ said earlier. I like hanging out with you, Russ. You're every time I talk, I'm like, man, we should talk more often. I need to come get a couple beers with you at some point too. But better information is better decisions. You talked about data-driven decisions. I mean, that's what we live by here. So, I mean, it's the more information and data that you have, it puts you in a position of strength as a home builder to negotiate better, to be better, to buy better. We talk in terms of total cost of ownership. So every initiative that we embark on as a company, we're always looking at total cost of ownership. And that's what we're looking for our builders to do. And that's data-driven. That's what does it mean for when you get value out of a particular program? What does that mean? Well, it's the total cost of it. It's pricing, it's rebates, it's how long is it going to take you to get something in? It's the quality of that product. It's the warranty of that product. It's who's skilled enough to put that product into your home the correct way. There's so many different decisions. The price lock. Is the price going to be different 6 months from now when I need it versus what it is now? Do I need to pay up front? A million different decisions that go into home building, and the decisions that builders make. The more data you have behind those decisions, the better off you are. And every initiative we do, we try to keep that in mind. So it's awesome to hear you say that, Russ.
Let's talk about the financial metrics as well, because this really leads to this next question. And both of you probably look at numbers and data and empower people to make those data-driven decisions. So Russ, what are some of the key financial metrics that you look at when a builder comes through the doors wanting to, or wanting to get some insights to help grow their business?
How long do we have, Bosco? Because you're going to start me off, and I'm not going to stop here. But I'll probably try and I'll keep to a couple of maybe not so commonly known or understood calculations. Now, obviously, there's got to be weekly monitoring of gross profit, as we've both just talked about. That obviously everyone understands gross profit. Maybe not everyone understands the difference between markup and margin, but that's a whole different topic. But the weekly monitoring of that gross profit on jobs is absolutely crucial at the moment. But another calculation that's maybe not so understood by builders is the work in progress accounting adjustment. A lot of builders are familiar with the term work in progress, but when we talk about the actual accounting adjustment that goes inside their accounts, it's not just builders that are not familiar with how to use this calculation, it's the accountants and bookkeepers as well. So that is a key metric that must be understood by every residential home builder, especially new home builders, because this figure is a hidden liability in the accounts that doesn't appear on your creditor's report. And during these times of extraordinary opportunity and growth, that figure is increasing. So you've got to be aware of what that number is. You must calculate it. And obviously, like I mentioned earlier, we have the calculators within the Association of Professional Builders that enables builders to do this calculation quite easily. So that's a very important one. Once you calculate that number, you've got to make sure you've got the cash, the actual physical cash on hand to cover that liability at all times. You do need excess cash to have reserves in your business, but the cash that covers the whipper, that's not effectively a reserve. That is a current liability that you're covering. So you've always got to have cash in your business to cover it. Probably another calculation that doesn't always get looked at, but is a very important one during a growth stage, is to look at your fixed expenses as a percentage of revenue. So total fixed expenses divided by revenue will give you a percentage. That will really help you benchmark your building company and manage the resources as you grow it. The benchmark for a new home building company is 15%. If you find that your percentage is higher than that, your building company could be a little bit bloated. You might need to look at streamlining things a bit. Equally, if you're below that 15%, it presents an opportunity to bring more resources on, i.e. more staff and systems that will enable you to free up more of your time to work on the business and further grow it.
And I think we could probably spend an entire another conversation, or in the future about calculations. But Ryan, I'm going to dig into your thought process, because you're dealing with purchase power. So what is your calculation, or what is your financial metric that you look at from that perspective?
Similar to you guys, we look at a lot of numbers with our builders. When it comes down to procurement of materials, we're always looking at the bottom line for profitability, trying to make sure that how everything that plays into that bottom line affects it. And it comes into the decisions that you make every day. I don't know that there's a metric that we look at, similar to Russ was talking about the 15%, which is, I have a follow-up question for Russ on that as well. But I don't know that there's, a relation to hard costs, from hard costs to X, sale price of the home. A lot of it depends on a lot of factors, depending on where you're building and how you're building. But being able to bid out every phase of construction as often as possible and put yourself in a position of strength to maintain that profitability is key. The days under construction is very, very important. What does it mean to your business when you take a 30-day hit because you didn't order something on time, or the product that you ordered doesn't come in when you need it to? Like, what does that mean to you? And a lot of builders don't understand exactly what that means. They say, well, the house is sitting for 30 days. Okay, well, what could I have done different in the flow of how I'm building this house to alleviate that? And what did that 30 days cost me? What now do I have to do to get these guys lined up? Am I going to be able to get the crews? Just from a carrying cost, what's that 30 days mean in terms of how much more taxes am I paying? What's the different fees I have to pay? All the different, everything that goes into it. So time is money. And we try to really illustrate that to builders, that when you work with a great set of manufacturers and suppliers that do what they say they're going to do, and you're a great builder, you're not only getting through to make your customer happy, but you're making sure your profitability adds up every single time. My follow-up to Russ is that 15% expenses to revenue. You said if people were underneath of that, you advise them to invest in their business. And if they're over it, they better skinny up a little bit. Did you see a lot of builders before 2008 that were different in that number than they were now? It seems to me like there's a lot of people still running a lot leaner now after going through what they had to go through in 08, 9, 10 than they were before. Are you seeing a lot of that?
The builders that tend to be way below that number are the smaller guys that are resisting the growth, basically. And one thing that we do teach builders is growth is not linear. It follows the S-curve, or a series of S-curves. And that becomes a bit of a mindset challenge, because you go through the hard yards, you get your building company to a certain level, and in order to take it to the next stage, your net profit's going to go backwards. And we can get quite attached to our net profit. We want to protect that. We want to grow and we want to protect our net profit. But yeah, it's a bit of a mindset adjustment that we have to be prepared to let go of the net profit in order, because our fixed expense ratio will increase, but then we're on the path to the next level. In terms of the data, we only started working with builders in 2014. So we're only able to start collecting data from that point forward. So we don't have the metrics from 2008, but I certainly take your point and I agree with you. I think the builders that went through 2008 are a lot more resistant, number one, because of what they experienced. But number two, as we get older, we are more risk averse as well. And it's the reason why the Association of Professional Builders targets builders between the age of 25 and 55, because beyond a certain age, yeah, we find them too resistant to new methods. But the younger builders, the 25 to 30-year-olds, we see them adopt our strategies at such an incredible pace. And the growth that they achieve is simply amazing, because they don't question anything. They simply jump in and do it. And then they come back. Okay, that's done. What next? And they're just on this incredible trajectory. Yeah, that's quite amazing to see. But I just want to come back to the point you made, Ryan, because I love what you just said about the 30 days, the cost of that. We actually call this the cost per job per day, and it's part of our pricing for profit calculator for builders, because you're absolutely right. A 30-day delay, a lot of guys will simply think, well, yeah, that's just parked up for 30 days, it's not eating anything, but it is. This is the whole point. You have a finite capacity in your building company to only manage X amount of jobs at a time. So when a job is delayed for 30 days, that is affecting your availability to take on another job, and your fixed overheads, your fixed costs are your fixed costs, and they have to be spread across the work you're doing. So that fixed cost has to be calculated on a per job basis and then calculated on a per day basis. And it's extraordinarily it's a lot higher than most builders will realize, probably in the $300 to $400 a day mark. So even a 2 or 3 day delay is costing you over $1,000, and that's not $1,000 revenue. That is straight off your bottom line. And when builders understand this, they have a very different attitude to a painter that says, I can't get there this week, I'll be there the following Monday. Well, do you know how much that's just cost me?
Well said.
Well, let's get into the statistics, and maybe, there's a statistic here that's a big telling sign of the construction industry. I'm just curious if either Ryan or Russ, if you have any statistics from the trend, of where we're going from a procurement side or profitability side or sustainability side. Russ, we'll start off with you. Is there any telling signs or statistics that you're coming across right now?
Yeah, there's a fact really in the industry, and it's almost a bit of a myth as well, but builders make less money in a boom. It's quite obvious when you think about it. But there is this myth that, there's all this business out there and there's all this cash flow and things are going well. But the reality is that resources are becoming scarce. Therefore, supply and demand means those prices are going up. The price of labor goes up. Materials, they go up in price because of supply and demand. However, builders are typically signing fixed price contracts way in advance. So the thing that's getting eroded is their margin. So they always make less money in a boom. They make more money in a decline because they can renegotiate. But the stat that really backs that up is that 70% of residential home builders are below the industry benchmark for gross profit at the moment, according to the State of the Residential Construction Industry Report 2021, which the Association of Builders published earlier this year. 70% of builders below the industry benchmark. And the other thing that we have seen from our ongoing data analysis is that pricing and margins are now the number one concern amongst builders. 12 months ago, it was marketing and sales were 1 and 2, but now pricing and margins, 2 in every 3 builders now cite pricing and margins as their number one concern.
Ryan, any statistics that you're coming across from a procurement side?
Not really. I would say similar. I would echo similar to what Russ said, but that was a very interesting point that Russ made there about how how that affects the whole chain. That's pretty interesting. I don't have much to add to that, I guess, but and I took some notes on what Russ said there. I like it.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of the state of residential construction industry, I have it in my hand right here. It's a beautiful visual, and I've learned a lot about the industry just reading this from an outsider's perspective. And what I really loved was, one of the things, the key issues and snapshots from the report is that builders want to systemize their business in 2021, which validates everything both Russ and Ryan you've been sharing today. Building companies do not have a succession plan, and they're not thinking about it, which is a bit of a scary insight. And the other insight that I took away was building companies do not have written job descriptions yet cite a lack of reliable staff and subcontractors as a major challenge in their business. So, these are some of the overviews, and I encourage you to get this report. Russ, this report is on the website as well. But the bigger question is there a 2022 report coming out?
Yes, we are in the process of gathering data from builders for the 2022 report right now. And I would urge all residential home builders to take part in this survey, because it is a great way to benchmark what you're doing against the industry standards. I think the questions asked in the gathering of data for this survey are very thought-provoking, and they do uncover some blind spots in your own business. So it's great to have that objectivity, but it also rates your building company at the end of the report, so that you can see how your business compares to other building companies in the industry.
And with an international forecast, you had builders from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the US take this survey in 2021, and you pulled an interesting statistic across the globe. Where did you get that thought process, or what? How did this come to life, I guess is a better question.
Yeah, the most interesting thing is we speak to builders in the US or Canada or New Zealand, and it's always the same reaction. Well, it's different in the US, it's different in Canada, it's different in New Zealand. But fundamentally, we knew that the challenges are extremely similar. Even when you go a step further, you could look at regional to metro areas. Again, the challenges are very similar. Obviously, you can go to an extreme regional area and they could have some more localized challenges. But really, strategically, the challenges remain the same for builders. So we broke up the data to really resonate with people in different countries, but also to highlight that it's very similar. There are slight differences, but there's nothing major there. The builders in the US really are on the same path, following facing the same challenges as builders in Australia.
Okay. That's interesting to hear you say that. I'll jump in real quick, Bosco. We operate only in the United States, but we have 34 markets. And every time we go into a new market, it's kind of always the same thing. Well, this is different. You guys have never operated in Texas before, 15 years ago when we went into Texas. And well, Phoenix and Scottsdale are different. Well, the whole Florida market, now you're up in the Northeast. And yeah, they are different. And builders are different. We operate with all different types of builders all over the place. The big builders doing $10 million homes, 1 or 2 a year, as opposed to people doing 100 homes at, 400, 500, 600,000. Everybody's different. They all have their nuances. But to your point, they're all building houses the same way with the same materials, and they all fight the day-to-day challenges of progressing through the critical path of construction in order to please their homeowners and buy things as good as they can, put great products in there. And they're all at the end of the day, very, very, very similar. So I imagine builders in, New Zealand and Australia and everywhere throughout North America all fight the same challenges, and we can help them all, Russ.
For sure. Yeah, it used to be, we used to hear them, well, my business is different because I'm a custom home builder.
Well, and it's an interesting, it really is an interesting thing, because I think we're all fighting the good fight when we look at builders across the globe. Let's talk about insights for the future. And someone once said, "My hindsight is 2020, my foresight is legally blind." But I'm going to ask this question anyways for both of you here, I really want to get your perspective here from CDUSA and the Association of Professional Builders. What is, or where is the construction industry going? What is it evolving to? And what is CDUSA and the Association of Professional Builders doing to prepare builders for the future? We had this apocalyptic event last year, and the last big event in the US was the 2008 recession. So I think they were a bit different in some sets, but I'm just curious to get your insights. We'll start off with Ryan. What is your foresight for the future?
I guess Bosco, I don't have a whole lot of foresight. That's exactly where things are going. But I sure know that what we're going to want to do when we get there is to be very nimble as companies, to be very open-minded as companies, to be light on your feet, to be open-minded, to be forward-thinking in the way that you run your business. Because whatever's ahead over the next mountain, there's going to be more challenges. I don't think that we could imagine a tougher year than we just went through, because materials were unbelievable. I mean, nobody saw that ever dreamed that lumber pricing could be so high, or that allocation could be existing where people don't have enough. None of those things that were ever in anybody's thought process. So if you have a company that's forward thinking and adaptable, and you as a business owner are smart enough and realizing that, I need to build my company on adaptability, because what worked yesterday may not work tomorrow. So whatever the next challenge is over the horizon, and we're going to be sitting here a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever those challenges are, it's going to be different, but it's going to take customers. It's going to take business owners. It's going to take a staff of great employees that believe in the process, that believe in the company, that believe in taking care of their homeowners in order to get through that. And if you think about it, like interest rates is one thing that everybody talks about now. Interest rates have been really, really, really low for a long time now. What happens when interest rates go back? I don't know that they're going to go back up to 18% like they were at one point, but they've been hovering in the 3s and 4s and for a long time now. What happens when those are up in the 6s and 8s again? And that could happen. Well, us as business owners, we're going to have to figure out how we're going to help our customers, Russ, how to manage that when all of a sudden now it's different strains on your company. So that's one way of answering that question. I think, Bosco, whatever's ahead, let's be ready for it, I guess is my point.
Russ, what is your insights on the future?
Yeah, I love Ryan just touched on inflation. I just wrote an article on that last week talking about that very point, because although we've experienced construction inflation, it's the effect of general inflation on a business that a whole generation of builders have never had to budget or prepare for. So that's an excellent point that Ryan brought up, that builders need to be educated on how to manage their business through an economy that does have strong inflation. But to answer your question as to what the construction industry is evolving into, we believe it's evolving into a professional industry, because standards are rising all the time, and that's going to drive client expectations, and systemized building companies are going to become the norm in the future, not the exception. So I think we are heading towards a far more professional industry than we've ever seen before. And with that, builders will get the respect that they deserve. Yeah, the builders don't enjoy the respect of other professionals like lawyers and accountants at the moment. And with their knowledge and expertise, they deserve to be put in that same bracket.
Excellent, excellent. Gentlemen, do you have any questions for each other? I've been asking all the questions today, but I'm just curious if you have any insights, observations, or anything that you want to talk to each other. We've come to that stage of that conversation where it's a free flow.
I guess one thing is in all throughout Europe, the way that they build houses is a lot of shipment. They build it inside, right, and then they ship it now, and that's becoming a very, very big thing. That's sweeping Europe. It's coming across from California now. And
You're talking about are you talking about the modular homes?
We've had speakers come in and talk more about it. It's there's a name for it. There's a better name for it that's escaping me right now. It's Integra is one of the companies that does it, and it's but they're basically even custom homes, as custom gets. They're building them and then shipping them piece by piece in bigger chunks where it eliminates. They could build a house in 4 days instead of building it in 50 days, framing it because of just the way they build a lot of it inside and bring it out. And they use the analogy, BMWs are not made out in the snow. They're made in a factory. So you're not going to make a BMW outside in the middle of a mud pit. Well, the more you can, and modular, I guess, is how it used to be, where they would build all the closed wall product and they would ship it out and it would be all ready to go. This is not quite that, but it's, anyway, I just wanted to know if you had any of that kind of stuff going on in your world, Russ.
So with prefabricated, would that be the term that you might be looking for there? Would that
be the prefab world? But there's even a better, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It is something that I've seen popping up on a regular basis over the past 10 years now. I don't think it's as strong a concept in Australia as it certainly is in the US, because we're hearing it brought up more and more, and it does seem to be a growing segment of the industry. For sure. So it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves. But my experience in the construction industry over the last 10, 15 years now is the US tends to be about 3 to 5 years ahead of Australia in terms of its adoption of new ideas. And that's not to say Australia, is lagging far behind the rest of the world. Not at all, because Australia is very forward thinking. It's just the US tends to be a few years ahead, but Australia is certainly well ahead of other countries in certain adoption, like the UK, for instance. I've seen Australia well ahead of the UK in terms of construction.
They refer to it, you guys, as off-site construction. Off-site construction is what it's called. There's a company out of California called Integra, and they've shared some really interesting data with us as far as what building in the United States and other countries could look like to mirror what's happened in Europe over the last 10 years. And it's pretty interesting to see how that could revolutionize the way homes are built, revolutionize the way builders procure labor, procure materials. And it's basically all key components of a home that are built under a factory condition and then brought out and assembled. So anyway, that was just something I had. Nothing that we.
Do you see 3D printing becoming a component of our industry in our lifetime?
Yeah, that's another great one. That's a great one. Yes, and I just heard a guy. Have you heard anybody talk on that lately on that subject? It seems like you have, or you probably wouldn't have brought it up.
Again, been seeing in the US, been seeing examples of custom homes being built with 3D printers. I guess if we look far enough into the future, I think it will present a challenge for our industry. We'll see our industry evolve, because we could potentially see consolidation there with a few very large companies owning the 3D printers. That's one possible scenario which could really throw a massive challenge for the way the industry is structured at the moment.
Somebody can make a lot of pieces and parts for a house with a 3D printer.
So what I'm hearing is we're probably going to have a Tesla model for construction very, very soon, because it sounds like the industry is moving in that direction as well. Gents, I feel like I've been a bartender where 2 patrons from different parts of the world have come into this bar. So thank you for allowing me to serve you drinks today. Thank you for your time, and I just want to also thank you because in my experience, dealing with builders and talking to them, and Russ, I think what the Association of Professional Builders has done is really created a place of safety and a place where people can connect, and I'm seeing the same responses as well from CDUSA and the events that you're putting in, and the care and passion and purpose that you both have for this industry. So I think on behalf of the builders, I think I should thank you both for providing that safe haven and a place for people to connect, because I think builders really are growing, and this is going to become a very professional industry very quickly. So any final words from either Russ or Ryan?
It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with both you and Ryan today, Bosco. Thanks so much, Ryan. Great chat and great insights as well. So thanks for spending the time.
This has been awesome. I appreciate you guys, everything you're doing. I look forward to catching up with both of you again. So well done, Russ. Thank you, Bosco. Great job.
Thanks for your time, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.